Hello everyone, I'm And More Bus Videos, otherwise known as And More Central, and welcome back to another episode of OMSI 2, the bus simulator, where you join me at a university, specifically Ashbury University in Yorkshire County's 3.0 map. It's been a while since we've been on Yorkshire, and I was having a little look through as to what map to drive, and remembering how much I paid for this map when I bought it off Steam, I thought we'd better actually do another drive of it, as to say that it was going on about, I think, just over £25. I do neglect this map probably a lot more than I should. You do get into that stage though, where sometimes you do find your maps that you prefer, you find your routes that you prefer, your buses that you prefer, but it is always nice to sort of spruce it up sometimes, every so often, and do something a little bit different, and that's what we're doing in this video. Initially, I was going to do the U46, but I think I'm going to do that in a future video, if not the next one, using a different type of bus. But for now, I thought we would drive the PR2 service, the Park and Ride 2 service from Ashbury University, that will take us all the way, once I find my running board, I always forget where it is on this bus, all the way to Sycamore Terminus. The route length itself is about 28 minutes, and I have loaded up the destination blind for the work into here, just to make sure the whole file worked, as I know there was a couple of buses I was trying before this where it wasn't wanting to work on them. So the vehicle that we are driving is the Volvo B7TL ALX400. It is the open software one by V3D. V3D made it and then made it basically open so that people could do edits to it, put it in other games, all of that kind of thing. So there is that iconic sort of meme video gif, whatever you want to call it, of one of these in first bus colours drifting around on one of those racing games. And yes, this is the exact same vehicle model, just utilised in a different game. So the specific one that we're driving is the one that Connections buses had, M500JJR, previously a WCWR vehicle. The bus was new to First Bus and ended up with Huddersfield as their, let's try and find, here and ended up at Huddersfield as their 30865. Out of the 308, it was the only one that ended up being properly saved from Huddersfield, with Connections buses purchasing it and using it for a long period of time. Connections bus then really moved towards... What ticket are you wanting? I've got no help. Okay. Let's just, we'll have to actually listen, so that's 350, there we go. I wasn't expecting to be giving out, I don't know how much he was giving me. I'm going to presume that, there we go.
Good day, driver.
I'm going to presume that that's a child return if you've given me £2. Okay, let's try again. Let's play the guessing game of what people want. He then proceeds to switch off ticket selling for the rest of the journey, because for some reason the screen that you sometimes can see, sometimes can't, the red text in the corner is not actually coming up for some reason. Don't quite know why, but hey ho, we'll just plod on. So we can sort of drive this park and ride route in the vision that Connections buses, as one of the highly respected independent operators, has been hired in to cover specific runs on it. I was going to use a totally different bus and a totally different repaint, but then I realised, I was like, well, it's got to, with it being Yorkshire map, it's got to have some sort of Yorkshire relevance in some shape or form. So I've never driven this route before. I just know that the PR2 uses double deckers, so I know that there's no low bridge issues. That's about as far as the logic that I'm going. I know that the route should take us about 28 minutes, and I know that Yorkshire County's timetables are tight. That's why I always find it quite surprising. I just am never bothered about driving on this map, because they are the kind of timetables that I like to drive to. But I think a lot of it is sort of the operator. I just don't think I'm I'm that inclined on the operator. I think with sort of Explore Strathshire, I like the livery and the operation size is small, and I don't know, it just seemed to be, it just was a little bit more to be liking. So I think that's the only justification I've got, if anything. But every time I do drive this map in a video, I do kind of think, well, why don't I drive it more? But I think that would just involve me doing a lot of AI list changes and things like that I will end up doing in the future when I have a bit of spare time. So Connections buses, believe it or not, did go through a period of having Volvo B7TL buses. You wouldn't think that now when you look at their fleet of Scanias, but at one point they did have a sizable fleet of B7TLs. They still get the occasional one in because Connections buses now have a sort of bus dealership side to the operation, so they do get the occasional B7s in that they sort of buy and then sell on, and sometimes they keep them for school contracts if they've gained a couple school contracts at the time. So it does kind of make sense as a model. A very similar idea. Very similar idea to what Ensign Bus did, where sometimes if they had a C2C big rail contract coming up, a couple of their recent sales stock would then get branded up with Ensign Bus names and be utilised on the contract work. That when you're running a company of that size, it does make sense. So Connections buses do the same with a number of school vehicles. So now, quite recently, they had some Volvo B7TL presidents from Ellie Rose Travel that they bought VMOAs and I think WDOPs. And what they did is they used, I think, 1 or 2 of them on school contracts for a temporary period before selling them on. Because obviously when the school contracts are there and you gain them, or you've got a couple of vehicles off the road for bits and bobs, or you're repainting a couple of buses, it does come in handy to have a float vehicle that you can utilise. Running sort of a sales dealership does mean that you tend to have quite a few float vehicles hanging around the yard from time to time. So I believe this bus got sold on. 3865 is still lurking about. If I remember correctly, there was an image recently of it with a coach operator and said, oh, don't do that, and said coach operator had painted it white and fitted coach mirrors to each side. It was quite an interesting retrofit. Okay. Quite an interesting retrofit, as retrofits tend to go. And it's been fitted with coach mirrors. Presumably it's a coach company that has a double-decker or two, and a lot of their drivers are used to sort of driving coaches, so the odd bus has to have the same style of mirrors. And that I do understand. It looked a bit odd in the photos, but I believe it is the one with big coach mirrors on now. It is nice that this bus does still survive. As I say, it was the last of the WCWRs to be saved at Huddersfield. I remember going on them pre-DDA because, yes, these buses did get withdrawn by First Bus due to the Disability Discrimination Act that was brought into force in 2016 for double-deckers. Or should I say the end of 2016, the start of 2015 is probably more the accurate definition there. It was the 31st of December 2016 that non-DDA buses could still be utilised on service work. on sort of regular public service work. And with these, the reason that they weren't DDA compliant was two things: the green dot matrix destination blinds, and even though the B7TL Geminis in Leeds are still running around with them to this day, the last one still has green dot matrix. Because of their age, they were exempt, and something to do with the wheelchair base size. It was slightly too small. And First had done the modifications on their newer WDWX vehicles, quite a number of them, not all of them, but they had done quite a number of them, and they decided that the WCWRs weren't worth spending the money on, and they just scrapped them anyway. So it was a shame with these things, but they do happen, and service requirements are service requirements at the end of the day. There we go. Me getting along with the last minute route arrows as usual. I think for me, I would appreciate them sort of being in about 50 yards beforehand. That would be a lot more helpful, because you have to slow down at junctions like that when there's multiple grey icons on the board for this one. So I do understand the colour coding system, but even then, when the colours split off, you do have to slam right to a halt to work out where you're going. That when you're on a 40-mile-an-hour road or a 30-mile-an-hour dual carriageway junction like that, it's a little bit unrealistic. I'm very much a fan of this route, as to how much it flows around. I don't think the buses, as the cooling fan started to kick off, but oh no, we don't need that yet. A Yorkshire unibus that casually goes by the Lake District. Seems about right. So this reminds me of the last time I actually went on this bus with Connections buses, and it was a snow day, I believe, in 2018, if memory serves me correctly. There we go, that's what you want with the arrows a bit more in advance. And it was a snow day, I believe, in 2018 or 2019, and I ended up trekking up to Huddersfield or not Huddersfield, Harrogate, both begin with H. We've been on about Huddersfield a lot. And I ended up trekking up to Harrogate to sample a couple of buses that Connections buses had got, and a couple of buses that Transdiv had, because Transdiv had a couple of old VMOA presidents out in use that day, and Connections buses had just got some Optare tempos that were incredibly short-lived, but they did get some Optare tempos from Stagecoach. That, as I say, they didn't last long at all before being sold on. So I thought we'd go up and sample an Optare tempo, because I wasn't going to get a chance otherwise, and sample some of the older presidents that Transdiv Harrogate had. And I ended up in Wetherby, and as I was in Wetherby, this vehicle rocked up on an X70 service to Harrogate. And I remember it because it was quite a snowy day. The buses were incredibly quiet, and some of the drivers were driving cautiously, but not the driver of this B7. He absolutely floored the bus from Wetherby to Harrogate, and I mean absolutely floored it. It was absolutely amazing. Really was. There is a video, I believe, on. There will be, as I believe, there is a video on the and more bus videos on this channel. So if you do go into the Connections Buses playlist, you should be able to find it. See, because I can't put the red thing up, I am actually going to have to... check at this stop as to if I'm late, if I'm early. Because I don't exactly know. Broadway pub, 11:43. Oh goodness, we ended up leaving 2 minutes late, we're now 6 minutes early. So this route must not have the same tight running as some of the other services on this map. Because I know with the original version 2 of this one that had all of the really weird and bizarre turning loops everywhere, that was incredibly tightly timed. Some runs on that map, if you drove at the normal, like, realistic speed limit, were impossible. They weren't impossible for me, because you'll all know by now I don't tend to stick around driving in this game, but they were incredibly tightly timed. That, I mean, I used to enjoy it because you'd absolutely floor it around and you'd still get there roughly on time, but it's one of those that it's like you can't drive in a shift format because you just don't get any sitting time anywhere and you're just constantly going round and round and round and round. And it's like, don't get me wrong, it's nice to do that every so often, and it's obviously nice to have the realism with the traffic to run late, but it is also nice to, if you're trying to drive a couple of hours, it is nice to have a realistic about 5 minutes at the end. 5 minutes at the end of the route, sort of have a breather, go and get a brew, and then come back. And if you're constantly pausing the game, it's something that I just don't like doing, constantly pausing it to sort of have those breaks and things, because I just think it's just... You're sort of pausing out the game. You want to try and stay in the map kind of thing, if that makes sense. Oh, I slightly jolted it, it's fine. In all honesty, while I had this vehicle uninstalled, I did forget how nice it is on these kind of routes to just absolutely floor. It's just the agile steering on it, the sort of responsiveness when you go around corners, the fact that the brakes actually do something, you're not there having to slam all on all the time, it's not soft and then slam, the brakes actually work all the way through. It is just a really, really nice bus to drive. And that's not even me being biased because I grew up with these buses, that is just... I would imagine even in real life they weren't as smooth as this one is in game. That'd be right. 13.7. All is good. I think we might be getting to the terminus, judging by the fact that everybody's just got up. So there we go. Oh, we ended up arriving in rather early, but that is the PR2 service from Park and Ride, or from the university all the way to Sycamore Park and Ride, or Sycamore Road. That was a nice run. I think it's been relatively quicker than I thought it was. The sign that at the start of the video I say that the route is going to take about 29 minutes, and the video is only roughly 20 minutes long, gives you an idea of how early we've ended up running. Oops. But these things do happen. I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you have done, do be sure to click that like button so that more people can find it and enjoy like you have. And if you haven't already, do be sure to subscribe to the And More Bus Videos YouTube channel for more content like this from the simulation section, as well as an archive of nearly 5,000 backseat and engine-focused public transport videos from around the UK and beyond, with buses, trams, trains, absolutely all sorts on there, and the archive being added to every single week with up to 21 videos per week being added to it. It's worth having a look through, as there'll be a video there for everyone. Once again though, I would like to thank you all for watching. I really hope you've enjoyed this one, and I will see you all in the next video, mate. Goodbye for now. Bye.